This may be the most panicked, or should I say let down or saddened 2-1 weekend you could possibly conceive as far as fans are concerned. Lot of just distress, right, among the fans about this 100T LCS team. We were 2-1 this weekend. So here's what happened. Jordan and I were playing the show as we usually do. And we decided about, 2 hours ago, to just scrap the entire format. Just scrap the rundown.
If
that. We're going to just have some conversations about the team in general. So, with that said, welcome to 100 Talk. I'm Cole. That's Jordan. We are the 100 Thieves fan podcast, powered by Rip It energy drink.
Powered by Rip It,
the only good tasting energy drink in the world. I've got Active Mandarin Live Wild Lime. Today, if you go to their Rip It, their Instagram page, Rip It's Instagram page, they've got codes for coconut and I think Limoner this
free shipping
this month. So free shipping on the case. We've got our
turn your house into a Rip It distribution center. Just get cases.
By the way, Anonymous showed up again with 5 gifted. So our secret admirer is giving us subs every time we stream. This is wild. Thank you guys. Thank you.
We admire you, secret admirer.
Okay, so like I said, this will be less formal. This will be less structured. We're kind of just going to talk about some things. I think in that light, if chat wants to weigh in more often, that's probably okay. We'll try and do a little more chat than we typically might. Again, we despite what it feels like if you were reading 100 Thieves fan Twitter, we actually did win 2 games and lost one to the best team in the LCS this weekend.
Right.
So
right. The team with perks, the team that is many people's favorite now that Team Liquid is decidedly middle of the table. But yeah, otherwise, Cole, it was an atrocity. We should be ashamed and embarrassed and afraid of what the rest of the season holds.
Well, should we? Because the thing is, Jordan.
Cole,
that's the thing. I don't think everybody who's a 100T fan is going to hear that and know that you're not serious. I think there's a lot of people, in fact, who might kind of agree with what you were sarcastically saying. So that's kind of the thing right now, man.
Let's see if we can reset the record on this, Cole. And I don't know if you've started your recording yet, but if you haven't, go ahead and start that.
Oh, I hadn't. So I'll just pull the audio later. Cool. Don't worry about that.
All right, no problem.
Yeah. Okay. So where do you want to start tonight as we come down from what has been a very interesting day on Twitter, which we're probably not going to get into here for obvious reasons.
Oh my goodness. Cole, I think we could start. You mentioned to me and had made a note in our show notes that, we are still tied for second, if I'm not mistaken. And we're actually having a pretty good split, all things considered. So should we start with some general conversation of whether or not that is based in reality, Cole?
Okay. Let's do that. I'm looking at the restream because apparently it's not going even though it's configured properly. So our YouTube people might be out of luck. I'm not sure what's going on with this, why we're having so many problems. We may have to switch how we do this. But I apologize because I'm looking at the settings right now and it's all the way it should be. So anyway, yes, Jordan, let's do that.
Okay.
What were our expectations going into this split? Do you want to start there?
Yes. I'm gonna do my best to remember what exactly they were.
I remember what I said.
Okay, if you have, I remember what I said more recently.
Yeah.
But I would like for you to go ahead and do your start of the split.
And I believe this was when we actually announced the roster, so this was like before lock-in. I was like, Golden Guardians was reasonably good last year. Like they weren't like a top 3 team, obviously, They seemed to start clicking during the playoffs. They lost a close series to TSM. And then we added Someday. We like took out Hanser and added Someday. So to me, it felt like, look, we are probably headed towards somewhere around 4th place.
Yeah.
Maybe 5th, but I remember being like, all right, C9, that's chalk. They're going to be real good. I expected Team Liquid to be really good, which I still think they'll get it together in time. Yep. And then I said TSM probably will be after those two orgs. Mm-hmm. And maybe we could compete with TSM. I didn't see Dignitas coming for sure.
Nope.
But yeah, I kind of felt like we were looking in 4th place about, and I don't know. You seem to agree with that assessment, if I remember right.
Yeah, that is. I mean, the only reason that I think that we're revisiting this conversation now is because I think, and look, I'm not excusing us from this. It becomes a lot easier and honestly a lot more fun to talk about upside when you're doing well, right?
Yeah.
Like when you start off the season hot and you're competing for 1st place, like every weekend we have the ability to essentially tie for 1st place, right? If we beat C9 on Sunday, we tie for 1st place. Who wants to sit here and talk about being 4th or 5th place when you're honestly competing for the top spot? It doesn't make sense, right? Like that would be a weird note for us to put in the show of like, all right, guys, it's, yes, we are in 1st place, but let's make sure that we're keeping an eye on the future, which is likely 4th. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about that. That's not as fun. So
no, it's not.
I think it's only natural that we kind of move away from that as we have a super hot start. But it's also important to remember that landing approximately where you thought you might land, and we're not even there yet, by the way, we're not 4th. But playing more like the team that you thought we probably would be is less cause for panic and probably more cause for a little pat on the back.
We're better than we used to be, right?
Maybe we got something right as we evaluated this team and what the likely trajectory was. And the last point I'll make, and I'll toss it back to you, is we didn't go into this split saying that this is we should be primed for disappointment. This is going to be a real letdown. I think I remember feeling like, hey, 4th place, obviously it would be great to make it to Worlds, get 3rd place, but that is marked improvement from our past seasons. And so I was prepared to feel pretty happy about that. And I think what we've had is a little bit of just over delivery in the early weeks, maybe in part due to other people under delivering. But we're sitting much better than I thought we would be at this point. Right.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to say something that we will dissect later. But I think like the counter argument or the cause for concern among people is seeing some of these games against lower ranked teams like CLG and Golden Guardians, where we are either, outright losing as we have in one case, or just like barely winning by the skin of our teeth and be like, okay, well, yes, we won, but it didn't look good. Okay. Yeah. And so there's cause for concern because, hey, we're not, against the tough opponents, we're not always going to be able to pull out things like that. Mm-hmm. I hear that. And I think there's truth to that. I will also say though, it's not like every game is always chalk, right? It doesn't always go better team beats worse team. It's never like that. And I would even argue that when you get, especially when you have hyper distinguished skill level teams like C9, who is just playing in their own layer of the Earth's atmosphere, the rest, it tends, there is losing to, quote, unranked opponents, right? There's bad losses, there's sloppy games. Those things happen. And sometimes they go in your favor and sometimes they go against you. And it kind of tends to balance out. We've underachieved in some games and we've overachieved in some games. And so have the other teams that are kind of in contention for the same kind of general range we are. I mean, I didn't get to watch all of the games this past weekend, but didn't Dignitas just lose to like CLG?
They did.
Yeah. So,
they did, in fact.
And again, I would say Dignitas was overachieving, but at the same time, it's like, those things happen to teams
Right.
going up to that,
Right.
Again, if you're C9, like if C9 loses to CLG or GG, like, that's insane. That's really insane. It doesn't mean they're bad, but it's insane. And when that happens to teams that just aren't as separated from the pack, it's kind of going to happen. So I get that. And it's not like I don't have problems with this team. I mean, I think most people who are familiar with me know where I'm going to land later on in this podcast, know what one of the topics of discussion is definitely going to be. So, all I'm saying is, we're talking about expectations. And this has kind of gone exactly as we thought it was. So why are we surprised?
Right. I mean, look, here's what it comes down to. If you are a mid of the table team, which by definition is probably 4, 5, 6, fifth being the exact middle, but you could say that fourth and sixth are probably in the same category for being technical. That's kind of what you do. You win some games that you probably shouldn't, and you lose some games that you probably shouldn't, and then you have some clean wins, and that's approximately how you end up in fourth place out of 10, right? Like that is we're just getting into definitions now of what it means to be better than a lot of the teams in the league, but not better than all of them, right? There are going to be games that we lose, of course. So it doesn't. I mean, like, yes, we got absolutely smacked by C9, and we. It wasn't close, and it looked like they were in a different layer of the stratosphere, if that's what you said. But they are definitely the best team in the LCS right now. So the fact that we're not as good as them at league currently just means that we're not the best team in the league right now, and I think that's fine. I'm okay with that. I would like it if we were, of course, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say we need to blow it all up because we're not. I think that's the guaranteed way to make sure you land in the bottom 2, which is not a place to be.
Yeah. Okay. And just to reiterate this, so we cannot be misunderstood. we're usually not understood. But so we can't be misunderstood. There are genuine problems that this team has. There's genuine weaknesses, genuine problems, genuine causes for concern. So don't take us saying this that, oh no, everything's perfect and fine. There's nothing to complain about. Obviously there is, but
I think that's the definition of being mid-table. Is there are genuine problems that need to be addressed if you hope to get better, right?
Yeah, and here's what I wanted everybody to do. Just complete this thought exercise with me. It's always a good stress management tool to do some visualization, right?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so instead of closing your eyes, I do want you to close your eyes. And instead of going back to a nice open meadow with golden grain waving in the wind, instead of casting your mind back to that cabin, your private place, cast your mind back to early 2020 100 Thieves fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Feel those feelings again. Remember the meme of 100T, which was 100T doesn't care about winning esports. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
A calendar year ago, that was like the most repeated phrase about 100T. 100T doesn't care about winning esports. It's like, whatever. No one cares. Like, we're just here to sell hoodies and we're here to do content and whatever. Mm-hmm. That's literally what was said all the time about 100T. I haven't heard that in a really long time. And we have, so, and you know how enduring memes are in the esports world. We've been able to shed that over this year, which is a huge deal. So the fact that we are expecting to be better and to compete is actually like massively improved. We're not getting made fun of on like the dive or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, we're in a different like classification than we were a calendar year ago. So I don't think we should overlook that. We should remember the sad state of things And when it wasn't true then, but there was at least like a way for people to say that as a meme and it still have like that hint of truth at it, right?
Right.
I'm glad that we've been able to shed it. And the fact is, as you mentioned earlier, if things continue to shake out in this way for us in LCS, then we will have a reasonable shot at contending for Worlds, which, you know, as most people have as their goal, you know, every year is going to Worlds. So yeah, it's different. We're just in a better spot than we used to be.
Yeah. And I will add, Cole, that I think that another thing worth addressing head on is I don't think that either you or I would be happy to like getting fourth place after you have a couple of seasons where your long shot hope is to qualify for playoffs feels better. But I don't think I'm off on saying that that's not like our long-term goal. I mean, the organization comes out and says it every year that they want to be at Worlds. They want to be competing for titles. Like this is what the organization's aspiring to. So just because you're okay with improvement, finishing fourth when we're used to finishing sixth or lower for the last two seasons, you know, that's not settling, right?
Yeah.
Like improvement isn't settling. Now, if every year we kind of say, hey, man, if we can just be mid-table, that's good enough for me. Like you want to get fourth so that you can identify the things that will get you to third, to second, and then eventually to qualify or to compete for a title. So I think that's worth just being very clear about too. Like this isn't us saying we should be happy to be on the outside looking in at the World's party. Like that's definitely where we want to be. But there are ways to get there other than buying a super team and qualifying immediately, which we've seen not even that is a guarantee. So
that's right. Okay. So having given that perspective, I think it is appropriate to look at what we're seeing as maybe some of the shortcomings of the team, some of the struggles that we're having, some of the things that are limiting our potential going forward. And again, everybody knows, top of my list right now, we got to talk about Damonte. We got to talk about it. So, and let me lead off by saying this week was again, preseason, the week that I predicted that it's possible we would be looking at replacing Damonte. Okay. I said that before the season started. This is in real life, in what has transpired over the past few days, this has been the week that everybody has really started being critical of him. Okay.
Yep.
I gotta say this. For me, Damonte has been better than I expected for this team.
Yep. So
in my mind, I'm like, yeah, my take, not just obviously the fact that he's not going to be replaced next week, but my take about him was wrong. Like he has been better for this team than I rated him. So it's kind of like a pleasant surprise for me. I don't think it's world changing. Early on, he had a couple really key games where he looked great doing his specific thing that we needed him to do, which was awesome. And his stats were killer. It looked great. The team looked great. But you play a wider body of games and you start getting the idea of the full picture of him. And I think there's undeniably some weaknesses in his skills that we can't overlook. And it's funny because even though he has come in better than I expected, he seems to be worse than everybody else expected. And so I'm kind of having trouble like feeling that and experiencing that in the same way as everybody else, because I'm like,
worse than like the analysts or the fans, or who are you referring to?
I think the fans when I say that, because I mean, look, I'm going to say this. I know this from personal experience. I read your guys' tweets. You guys were super high on this guy, largely. There are some of you who weren't, but you know, there was an insane groundswell of support for Damonte, which is cool. Let's support players, and even if they don't play well, it doesn't mean we need to be bad people to them, right? Like,
not at all. Yeah, never.
But yeah, there was crazy sport. Like you guys have this wrong. He's great. He's a top 3 mid, all this stuff. And then you seem displeased with your own takes is what I'm saying to the fans. And it's weird for me because he's better than what I expected. So I empathize with that, especially when we're seeing a game like C9 where we got really mid-gapped. We got insanely mid-gapped. In fact, to possibly a disrespectful degree. I don't know how many people saw that clip from LS on, whatever smart snarky boy podcast that was, Face Check or whatever, where he was talking about what Fudge said about the draft against us, where the LeBlanc pick seemed weird to someone like LS, who has a 100% perfect grasp on drafting and never makes any mistakes, and he thought the LeBlanc was weird. And Fudge said apparently when Perks went to go pick that, and the team was like, well, should we really do that? He said, it's Damonte. It doesn't matter.
Right.
That is, Fudge confirmed that on that stream. So if that really did happen, that's a problem, man. That is a problem. And I'm not saying, I don't know who in LCS can compete with Perks. I don't really think there is that human being. So I don't think this is just solely a Damonte issue.
Right.
But yeah, if you've got other teams drafting carelessly against you and still feeling confident. Ouch.
Yeah. That ain't good. And by the way, if it's not true that Perks said that, Fudge is wilding out. Like that is a very rude thing. That's a very, very rude thing to attribute to somebody if that's not actually what they said. So I believe that that's what he said. Look, here's what I think about this. I like to look at what a player says about themselves, right? As like, it's one of the ways I calibrate my own expectations when it comes to players. Damonte is the first person to tell you that he believes he is top 3 mid in the LCS. Again, Perks is by far the best mid in the LCS. Just like
looks
C9
like it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he started slow. He's getting there. And partially I wonder if he's kind of sleepwalking through this a little bit and can turn it on when he would like to. Like, I'm guessing that he recognizes he can coast a little bit in the LCS and his team will continue to win. And so why are you going to try as hard as you otherwise would have to? So Perk's the best. Damonte could be the 3rd best mid in NA. I'm not saying he is or he isn't. He could still be the 3rd best mid in NA and be that much worse than Perks. That is still, it's possible that is still true. But I think what is becoming more of a question on people's minds is that actually true? And so I don't think it's super helpful to look at an individual's performance against Perks, because I think he could dumpster pretty much anybody at this point comfortably. And like if you really wanted to. So yeah, that for me is where we have a question mark.
But okay, let's ask the question this way then. I hear what you're saying. I think it's a good point. I'm with you in that it doesn't look like Perks has even a rival in the LCS. Yes. But would that statement that he allegedly made, according to Fudge, would he make that statement about, say, Power of Evil? Or
probably
about
not.
Jensen?
Probably not. That's a very good point, Cole.
That's the thing. The ability to make that statement, maybe he would as a troll. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. And guess what? Again, this could very well have just been BS that Fudge was saying. So I don't want to read too much into that.
I honestly doubt it.
But I think it's I doubt it too, but I think it's an illustrative thing no matter what.
It is. Right? It is. Absolutely is.
Because I think we all feel that to some degree, right? Yeah. That when you don't get Damonte on what his style is, then we can have problems. I think most people feel that way.
Yeah. And I think that's my read on it, is that we've been trying to broaden his style beyond things. I have to imagine, Cole, one of the worst positions to find yourself on as a coach is where you have a player who can only succeed and a team that can only succeed with one style. I mean, I've been wondering, like I called out last week one game where we passed on Galio when Galio was up.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're not seeing as much Galio. He was perma banned for a while. Like the global ban that you see coming out now is TF, so it definitely feels like that's more kind of in the meta. But I mean, remember early on, Damonte was drawing 3 bans, right? There were a couple games where he drew 3 bans. It's down to 1, and I think teams are recognizing that he is not going to punish if you give him his second or third choice. Like there's no need to throw your bans in, and that's not the marker for success as a player, that you're drawing 3 bans. And I've talked a little bit about this. How I believe that you either ban 3 champions against the player because you know that their 4th champion is doo-doo, or because you are so afraid that their 4th champion is still very likely to beat you, that's your only shot at success. And so I think that's like the big question mark for us, is what is both Damonte's limitation when it comes to champions he can play, as well as the team, right? What's the team's style limitation here? And are we going to be able to find a way to continue to like have the early success we did have, or just looking at our best games, like replicate that kind of success? I don't know. I guess that's a question mark for me right now.
Yeah, and a lot of that discussion that I've seen on Twitter and in our Discord and stuff has been reduced to the question of control mages for him. Like, is it just control mages? Damonte on control mages. Damonte on control mages. Is that something we need to get him off on? I think he's going to have to play him, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, he's going to have to play him. Tom Shu in chat said something along the line, now it's off my screen, sorry. He said it's better to push Damonte outside his comfort zone now rather than be punished for it in playoffs, which I agree with in principle. But yeah, it's like you're gonna have to have it viable if you want to win a best of 5. And I don't feel that we're there yet. And the confusing thing for me is when I see it, like say his Orianna. I don't think his Orianna is actually that bad. When I see it, I've seen him make really important plays on Orianna this split for us.
Yeah.
And that being like kind of the prototypical or archetypal control mage. The mistakes that I've seen him make on it is like getting caught out or like face checking at the wrong time or something, like, that it seems to be that kind of mistake, not a I can't play this champion well kind of thing. So I'm not sure if I've resolved the math here. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where I come down on that. There are certainly other champions where it feels like more of a problem than that, but I get that he has looked better on the champs with the global ults of a certain type. I mean, he didn't look good on Rise. No, I don't know. So I guess my point is, I'm not sure I'm buying into criticism of generalization of champs that he plays. I think that there are some maybe specific champ issues, and then possibly just how he's been playing the game in a where am I going and what am I doing at which times and which decisions am I making. Those kind of things have been bigger issues than his Orianna or his Syndra could be better,
Let me just kind of bring us back a little bit. Like, you mentioned Power U, you mentioned Jensen. I think he's had, if I'm remembering, which, not the best these days, but I'm pretty sure he's had games that were at least passable, right? And I'm not talking like he didn't lose us the game, but like he did his job. He kept even in farm. He made trips to other lanes. He showed up in team fights well. Like, I'm remembering games where he's done all those things. It's part of what has contributed to your sense that he's performing above what would have been expected.
Right.
And that was against people like Power People and Shizuke, Jensen, right? Like those who are going to be in the conversation for, top 3 mids. So I think his record shows that he's not incapable of doing that. I'm partially what I'm wondering here. I think what I'm asking is the absolute gap between him and Perks something that has caused us to revisit some of his other performances and say, there is definitely a gap here, and I guess kind of exploring the extent of it. Because here's what I think is what this boils down to, right? Typically in NA, this is how it goes. You have people who are competing to be the best at a position. It's pretty rare. Like there have been standouts in seasons. Core JJ, standout support. You know, he is head and shoulders above his competition historically. I think this season, obviously, they're having some trouble. But usually in the LCS, there's a pretty healthy competition going on for like who's going to get first team. You know, C9. Like there's always weird stuff there.
Yeah, right.
But it's not usually the to the degree where you could just say, well, if you're wondering who the best jungler is, I guess Blabber is usually it. So maybe this argument's falling apart a little bit. But let me just.
I agree that it's usually not like this. There's usually a debate to be had.
Yeah, there's usually debate, right? Whether it's Blabber, Santorin, or whoever, like in the past is Sunscarin. So usually what happens in NA is this goes on all season, and then finally they crown somebody and they give them a trophy, and maybe they get to lift the LCS trophy too and get a banner. And then they go to Worlds and they get smacked. And it's like, oh, that's what best in position looks like. You redefine what best in position looks like. And usually it's from a player who is from Korea or China. And there's some exceptions with EU, right? Perks has always been on that list. So partially what I'm wondering here is Damonte is looking different than Perks. And should we have ever expected anything else? Like he could still be a very, important part of this team and be way worse than Perks. And we might not have a ready-made solution for that because we don't have an import available to put in the mid lane. What I'm getting at is I think it's possible, and we should probably not lose sight of this, that we're just getting a very an expedited look at best in position when it comes to the globe, not just NA. Usually that gap is felt less acutely because you're talking about other NA talent, even if it's imports, right? The best in the world typically won't take import deals to come to NA. This is an exception. And so I want to at least give it room in the conversation to say, let's not be too hasty in judging his performance against somebody who is going to be, compared against the best in the world.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like usually the reality check comes much later in the season.
It comes way later.
But now,
and here we are.
Yeah, now one of those top mids is sitting in our league and playing the regular season against us. Yeah.
Right. And maybe he's sort of pressing snooze because he realizes he doesn't actually have to play world's best level yet, right? I'm sure he works incredibly hard to be one of the best players in the world. And if he doesn't have to do that week in, week out, maybe he's not. Like, I think that's a legitimate possibility. So, yeah.
That's fair enough. Since we're talking so much about Perks, I know you had some conversation you wanted to have about the rivalry with C9, the rivalry, and being outclassed by them. Do you want to go there?
I don't. Here's a it was one of the last episodes of the Heist. It was kind of like talking about a C9 rivalry and how our players viewed this team as like a rival. Man, we've talked about this a lot. And in past seasons, it was TL, right? That we felt like this sense of rivalry with.
Yeah.
And
like we personally did. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you and I. And I don't think they ever did. They being their fans or their players.
Right. Because they were just better.
And we've had this conversation about what it takes to have a rivalry. We do not have a rivalry with C9. There is no world in which they view us as rivals. If you can beat a team as handily as they beat us, it can't be a rivalry, right? Unless this is some kind of like trickery, like they pull the fast one on us and we'll get them next time. But I think, and this is the second part of what you queued up here, I think we're just truly outclassed right now in a number of positions against C9 to a degree that I don't think we can even claim that they are our rivals. It's not, we haven't earned it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that you and I have aptly named this back and forth with us in C9, El Blásico, right? Like it's,
right. Yeah.
It's never really much of a competition.
Yeah.
And that's what it will continue to be. And it's not just Perks, like Blabber is,
I think Blabber
absolutely been an uncontrollable menace. I think our bot lanes are. I still think our bot lanes are close. I think who he is cracking a little bit with the meta, which will. Well, I actually we didn't have this on our pre-show conversation, Jordan, but I do want to hit that for a bit later. And top lane, it's like I don't think Fudge is a rival to Someday. I don't think they're in the same category yet. Someday hasn't really been doing much, when it comes to changing things. I mean, he has a reasonably good game every now and then. He'll have a sick fight every now and then. He did like 8,500 damage or whatever it was in a fight just this past weekend. So there's a lot of that.
The Someday treatment.
Yeah, and I don't think he and Fudge are on the same level at all. I think Someday is a much better player.
Right.
But it so rarely seems to matter these days. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that's
like
kind of tough.
I think we've had kind of like feels like we've had the one game that Someday carried, and it was against Dignitas. There may be another that I'm forgetting, but that's the game that first comes to mind where it's like, thank goodness we had Someday in there because man, he ripped those fights up. Same with Closer, right? Closer also contributed in a very significant way on the Olaf in that game. But yeah, I mean, and I think this is one of the things that for me really drove this idea home. It was there was this fight we had in bot side river where we thought we had caught Blabber, but it turns out he had caught all of us, and we couldn't kill him, and instead he just killed all of our people. It was crazy, and I feel like that for me, like we put Closer on Olaf a lot. Yeah. He gets that champion regularly. Blabber never gets Olaf. This is why, right? Yeah. Like it looked like a different champion. It looked like he had a cheat code on that we have not unlocked, and it like that for me felt like okay, he's on a different level, and at least when it comes to that champion. But I think Olaf is a pretty bread and butter champ, right? Like if you're going to have one champion that you can outclass people on, that's a good one to be able to do it with in the jungle. So
yeah,
that's what I was thinking after that game.
Yes, and the rest of the weekend was just like I said. There's a game that we won that was a lot closer than it should have been on Friday, and then there was a game that we won that was probably about where it should have been on Saturday, and then the rest is just like being gapped by C9. I don't know. It makes me start leaning towards the meta, obviously, or honestly. It's like some of the champs that we are not playing or not playing well kind of have started to stand out to me. I don't know, for instance, when are we going to pick up Seraphine? Seraphine has proved to be a real problem in a lot of team comps, right?
Yeah.
Which we experienced firsthand. It's like, that ult will land on 5 people during the course of the game at some point.
Especially if you have an Olaf.
Yeah, you have to be ready for that, right? There's let's see. Oh gosh, I'm blanking. Oh, Huhi's Rel. Huhi's Rel just doesn't seem to be the same Rel that's played by supports of Huhi's caliber. And as I pointed out, I think last podcast in the previous weekend, in that eternally long game that we still lost, he had a few like amazing engages right on the Rel that really like won team fights basically single-handedly for us. But a lot of the times he doesn't, and a lot of the times he gets caught out and he's dismounted and we're screwed and something will miss. And so that pick, which is a very meta pick, isn't coming through as strong. I don't think Closer's Udyr has been the Udyr that is played by other top tier junglers, Blabber included. So it feels like we don't. Maybe it's a case of meta not suiting us quite as well. The meta for Damonte is always like, how viable are TF and Galio?
Right.
They seem okay right now, to be honest, but but not having
that's
that
also
opportunity or blind picking Azir into perks or so,
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem is when those champs are viable, they're likely drawing a ban. It's not that hard to effectively reduce their impact on the game through pick bans. Yeah, and that's again, this is going to dovetail in the next section. So we don't have to go there right now, obviously, but I agree. I feel like, and this gets a little bit to what I was talking about last week with, or one of the other weeks, where I just looked at who we had been picking and who we hadn't been picking. And I feel like there are notable champions almost at every position that we just don't seem to want to play. I still look at our picks, our composition, and a lot of these games I leave feeling like it's pretty predictable.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, against Cloud9, they pulled out the LeBlanc and the Seraphine. Two champs you don't see a ton of. Like, I don't remember seeing a lot of LeBlanc.
Yeah, but Seraphine is basically 100% presence at this point.
Yeah, now, because she is currently meta, like she's in the meta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a combination of things. We don't seem to be teching much. Like, we don't have pocket picks ready, and we're also not playing some of the most meta stuff. It feels like every game there's something weird. That, I mean, against Dignitas, Seraphine out again.
And someone in chat pointed out Scion has started to come back.
Yeah, Scion's in. And there's a really cool combo that I saw, I think Fnatic pull off with the Scion and the Lucian's Senna. Lucian's homie, Senna. So,
homie, like that's how you describe Senna to Lucian.
I don't know. Are they married?
Relationship, homie. Yeah, this is his wife. Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if they were currently. Can you be married to someone who's deceased? I don't know. She came back. She's back now. And we needed to consult the Lord
yes,
book. Yeah. So yeah, like, just looking at some of these other teams, even Broxa picked up J4, which I would say probably didn't work out too well, but we had Seraphine played against us 3 times this weekend, Cole. It would be cool if we also could play that champion and we did play it. Or ban it. But although we've asked for them to ban Rel, and so that's 2 of your bans gone. I mean, there are limitations here, right? Better if you can also play a champion and the other team has to ban it because they don't want to play against it. Yeah, these are things that I don't know the answer to. And I'm getting, it's reminiscent of conversations we've had in the past about Someday, which is, have you considered putting him on a carry? And the answer must be yes. The answer is always yes when you think about things like that.
Very yes.
And the thing that is always frustrating for fans is, well, why not? Like, if yes, then why not? And that's something we just don't know.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine that they've considered playing Seraphine and they've decided that it's just a not good idea for us. What is the reason is what I can't figure out.
Yeah, and maybe it's just a champ that FBI doesn't want to play. I don't think have we seen Tristana played by us yet?
You can play that starting to emerge. By the way, Seraphine is a support champ.
Yeah. Well, yes. So farming Seraphine, non-farming Seraphine. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, we have options. We're taking none of them.
So we did. So we did take a. FBI did play it into Dignitas. Thanks. So we did get the Tristana this past weekend. That's right. More of that. We haven't seen it taken mid, which has happened a few times. Maybe if you have a ranged champ, then Damonte will stay a little safer. I don't know. It does feel like we are catching up to other teams and being reactive, or just not reacting and just getting beat in draft or something like that. So that's a little worrying. I will say this, to my knowledge, which again, fully admit that we are idiots about League of Legends. To my knowledge, Zix is like the longest tenured coach in the LCS. I think that is a true statement.
Yep.
And it's that way for a reason, right? So one would assume that they are aware of this and are taking steps on this. Maybe it's we're not there yet, or maybe it's we don't feel confident in those meta champions for our current team. And when Lock-in was starting, we had a way better meta for us. I don't know, but it does seem to be we are behind. And that sucks.
Let me just ask you this, Cole. Let's do a little role play here. Let's pretend that we're coaches in the LCS.
Oh, this will be the worst.
You're gonna do great, and I can't wait to see the job offers start rolling in for you.
So we're role playing coaches.
It's not. I'm not asking you to draft for me. Here's my question.
Here, let me role play coach. These people on Reddit are idiots. These people on Twitter are idiots. Everybody's an idiot.
Yeah.
And they're not
these guys
wrong.
are the podcast idiots. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
These 100T guys are really big idiots.
But here's the honest question I have. You go through this weekend, you finish 2-1.
Yeah.
How compelled do you feel to make drastic changes? I mean, here we are clamoring for like new stuff. Let's see something else. But if you're a coach and part of your job here, if you're hoping to keep your job, is to qualify for playoffs and make a run into playoffs, like maybe put in a good showing for that world spot, but probably feel okay and secure in your position if you don't get it, just given where things stand currently and the expectations. Are you ready to throw the playbook out and just say, boys, we're playing Seraphine, Scion, Tristana mid. We've got, I don't know, Rengar in the jungle, and FBI, you're going to play Leona. Like, are you ready to do that when you are kind of getting your job done?
That's a good question. And that's a wise question. That's something that a smart person would say. I think what we're looking at, though, is just coming off of seeing how far we are away from the top of the LCS. Mm-hmm. And so that's the frame of reference for this conversation. So I don't think we're having an inappropriate conversation because I'm just if curious, we are like, honestly. if you're a coach, or a GM, your job is to make the team better with time. And at this time, we know pretty much where we are, and a way forward has to be rather drastic if we're gonna compete for actual first place. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see your point. Makes sense to me.
Would you rather lose a close game with meta picks or win a close game with your tried and true? I think when I say it like that, the answer feels pretty clear.
Wait, what was the first part of that?
Lose a close game with meta picks, try something new, pick something weird, or win a close game with what works at least reasonably well for your team.
So, I think almost always you're going to prefer the dub.
Yeah.
But the degree of preferring that option to the first option changes based on where you are in the season. Because as Tom Shu mentioned, like, you want to know what you can do in a best of 5. You want to know what your options are. So yeah, if we are sitting in a relatively good spot, tied for second, and knowing that maybe we're behind the meta a bit, then I do want to see us push because we have a little bit of wiggle room, and getting, closing that meta gap would pay some huge dividends later potentially. So,
right. I think that is the real answer. It's kind of both, right? Like, your job is to both find ways to win on today's patch and be ready to find the new ways you'll have to play to win in the next patch. And I think that if there is a criticism here or a concern, whichever one you want to go with, it feels like we are not moving quickly enough to give me a lot of confidence that we're going to be first adopters of the winning strategies in the next patch, whatever the next patch is. And I'm beginning to wonder. So there are two things I have in my head. Is this a Zix style thing, that he is a more conservative coach who likes to find something that works and make it work as long as it can before adapting to a new meta and a new patch and playing that new strategy, whatever it is? Or is Zix coaching teams who are limited in how successfully they can adapt and pick up these new styles? We don't know. We don't know if this is a coach thing or a team thing. Although I'd say we have some evidence to suggest that we have seen him with players on his rosters who have limited champion pools. That is for sure a thing. So I don't know. And I don't think there is a way you can answer this, but I think it's important to leave both possibilities open. And if I were GM, I would want to feel like I had a very clear understanding of what the likely answer to that is, right?
Yeah,
because I do think that it's going to be a limiter long term if we can't find new ways to play this game.
Yeah, and if I'm them, I'm assuming that they are basically just looks like I'm going monologue, boys. what I've always wanted to do. It to me, it seems like they are going to be the kind of people that are not overreacting. So I don't think Papa Smithy and Zix are sitting there overreacting to, you know, oh man, we won that game, but it was close, so we got to drastically blow this up. I think you're right. I think there's more of a conservative style, more of a conservative approach. And again, assuming that fact was right about Zix being the longest tenured coach in the LCS, then you have to assume he's earned that. So I understand getting upset at some drafts that look less favorable or some meta picks that don't seem great. Those are going to be little problems that somebody in our position is always going to have. I mean, look, TSM just lost the FlyQuest. You know what I mean? Like, there's the people that are tied with us or in that range, they're all pretty much the same thing as us. We still look good sometimes and not so great other times, and we scrape by sometimes. I don't know. I don't want to overreact to this, but there seems to be a limit. That's all I'm saying. I don't think competing with Cloud9 is in the cards.
Yeah.
Bringing that full circle.
And here to add a little bit more context to that TSM FlyQuest game, they played Skarner, Cole. So I don't know what to make of that. Clearly the meta pick of Skarner didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
They got burned.
Well, I'm glad they did, because that kept
Always
them tied with us.
Catching out.
Okay, so where to go from here? Do you want to talk about communication with the fans?
I talked about it a little bit. The point is just, you know, this is again something that communication's been kind of a meme in the 100T fan community for years now, kind of going back to the first year where everything got blown up. It's hard because the questions that we have, the answers that we're curious about, you sort of can't just go out and say those, right? Like if you're Zix, you can't come out and say, we have a bit of a conservative approach here, and we're going to continue to play the things that are working pretty well for us. We're going to emphasize less the meta picks kind of at the front of the meta, because we think we have a better chance of winning if we play things we know how to do really well. Because you're just explaining to the other team how to prepare for you, right? Like you can't tell the players everything they want to know about how you're going to play the game, because that's not like a secure line, right? Next week's opponents are also on the call, and so you got to be sort of mindful about what you're saying. But it does feel dissatisfying in some ways, because we're left to just sort of do what we do, which is make stuff up and guess, right?
Yeah, and that has, you know, been a thing that I've harped on a lot in the esports community. You know, us coming from outside of that community, where, you know, we haven't been esports fans our entire lives, right? We basically started watching esports when 100 Thieves became a thing. So we carry in a more traditional sports approach to it, where that kind of transparency is not common, right? Right. Fans don't seem to make the same demands. There's still endless criticism and discussion about those things in the sports world, but they don't actually, for the most part, come out to hear people say exactly what they're planning and what they're going to do and why they made player moves and stuff. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but certainly not on the same level. I mean, you get people like the Eagles coach press conference that happened a little while ago, where he's like, we're going to put systems in that are going to be good, systems that are easy for us to understand and hard for our opponents to understand. And that's how we're going to win. You know, it's like you get just mindless stuff like that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's good.
You know,
quote that.
It's just a different world. And that transparency that often I feel like esports fans erroneously feel that they're owed is disadvantageous to an org in many cases. So yeah, I'm not expecting us to know exactly what's going on behind these things, not even in the heist. And we just have to rely on our power of deduction.
That's right.
Sorry.
Do multiple deductions. That's fine.
Yes, all the power of all of our deductions. I like snapped a little rubber band that I was fiddling with. Sorry.
That's fine.
You want to do fan takes?
Let's do fan takes.
Let's do fan takes. Okay. Solicited some takes today in the midst of the firestorm. Twitter was a mess today.
It was horrible, Cole.
Twitter was an absolute mess. Some of these things we've probably already addressed, but let's just let's go through this.
Wait, Cole.
Yeah.
First, we had a chat take here, which is that G-Man just said, "Oh, LS just backtracked on the fudge quote."
Yeah, I saw that. He said the events were remembered in a different order, so it made it seem more personal than it actually was.
What?
I don't really buy it. And like maybe they were remembered, but it's like it doesn't seem like he didn't say it's Damonte. It doesn't matter. Like maybe he said that after the game or something. But
right, got it.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it was said. It might have come off a little different, but it was still said. Okay, first listener take. It's Chase26 says, this weekend went exactly as I had envisioned, narrowly escaping 2 losses based upon capitalizing on the other team's mistakes and getting a healthy dose of reality when it came to the C9 game. Once again, falling well short against C9. But his conclusion, because like I think you and I are like the same word for word basically up to that point, right?
Yep.
And then he says, once again, falling well short against C9, we look like frauds. Ooh. And that, sir, is strong language, Mr.
Yeah.
It's Chase26. Frauds is a really strong word for this team.
It is. It is.
I get that feeling of, man, we won some games we shouldn't have won. I get that. But it's not like we don't belong in like the upper 5 of the LCS.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's true. So frauds that language just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. I mean, again, get what he's going for. I think when you play a game that it's the first place game. Will you be first place or second place at the end of it? That's what decides. When you play that game and you lose in the way that we did, I can certainly understand how that is a conclusion that someone reaches, which is we don't belong in this game.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is, to a degree, I think that's true. I think that's true of anybody who plays against C9, right? And C9 is not infallible. They're not perfect. They've lost games. So, let's not get into the habit of saying that this season's done. But certainly right now, I don't think that there's a team out there that's got the recipe to beat them. That's one of the fun things about the LCS, though, is that over the course of a split, teams change and adapt and bring different looks. So, but yeah, I think right now we certainly look like we are in a different class. I don't think we're pretending to be anything we're not, though. I think we recognize that team right now is better than us.
I got it. I got this. We're not frauds. We're thieves.
Ooh.
Oh! Yeah, we
didn't come out on Twitter and say it was a fluke. I think is
it's just
like
it's,
that.
It's just too strong of a take. I get where you're coming from. I don't think there's zero truth in what you're saying. That is like, yeah, we've won some things we shouldn't have won, and we're kind of waiting on other teams to make mistakes. But you know what? Honestly, that's what you do if you're a better team than the other team. You capitalize on the mistakes of others. So exactly. I don't know. I wouldn't carry it that far is all I'm saying. Amox says, why can't we draft? That's it. And I asked him for more. I said, you got to give me more than that. And there was no answer. So we're just going to let that quote just float. That's
sit out there.
That's all it was. Haynes said, my take for tonight, why are we trying to become like other teams with control mages? See, there's that control mages thing. I said, we had TF and Galio available and didn't pick it. Ever since we started playing control mages, we haven't had any level 3 or level 4 dives that helped us win in the beginning. Why? Now, maybe those two things are related. They probably are to some degree, and maybe they're not. Picking control mages and being able to dive. So yes, we have relied on some Damonte mobility to get us some of those early plays. But you know what we've also relied on to get some of those early plays is just closer getting good ganks off without Damonte. And in fact, when it's without Damonte, that usually means Damonte has the mid priority to buy him some space to go and make those plays, which, you know, probably done on a control mage. So I don't know.
Here's one thought I have. I like this take a lot. This the take I can relate to in many ways. I think that there's a degree of unpredictability when you have both Damonte and closer as eligible bot lane visitors.
Sure.
I think it's that much harder to set up some of the crazy dives we have if you know exactly what you should be watching for. So I think even just having that one more option, in the past we've had someday able to pop down to via teleport. If there are 3 different things that could happen in your bot lane to mess up your laning phase, it's pretty hard to prepare or be ready for all of them. It feels a little bit like we're restricting our options when it comes to ways that we can influence the game in the bot lane, which, you know, basically for the first round robin was our, well, I guess like the first half of the first round robin really was our plan.
Yeah.
And we definitely seem to have moved away from that plan a little bit. Like I think the spirit of this is why are we trying to become like other teams? I have that question too. You know, like we call it standard league sometimes. It feels like we're playing standard league just not as well as other teams at times, which is why we've either been way behind or lost. So yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm interested in that too.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like I said, I think that's a good, intelligent response on the dives thing, and doing unexpected things or having that element of surprise is certainly a thing. One thing I was surprised about this past weekend, I forget which game, I could look it up in my notes, but there was a mid lane gank from closer at one point during this weekend. If, believe it or not, it may have been the first one this season. And it didn't work, by the way. But anyway, Ryan
against Perks, I feel like I remember that.
It might have been.
It was like when
throwing
he was
the
on
kitchen
the block,
sink out against C9.
Yeah, he's got the most mobile champion in the game, and he's good. Let's throw a gank at him.
Ryan B. Davison, that's Hexit, says they just need to double down on the style they can play on stage, which does not include Damonte on mages. Keep that boy roaming. So there is a control mage thing again. Yeah, I agree. Keep him roaming. Yeah. It's like he plays like a not as powerful or influential Niski style, right? Where Niski's like excellent at pushing the mid lane wave out and then finding the timing to roam and then making it back to lane. And it's like Damonte's like he's kind of like a great value version of that. You know, where he's not quite as strong. Still can sometimes gets the jobs done if he's set up the right way. And honestly, like if you look back to when we were doing well early season, Damonte was getting a lot of really important plays up for us. So
I mean, I think that's one of the things, right? If you have these global champs or tools in your kit, you don't have to shove the lane as hard. Like I think you can kind of get away with a little bit of like the great value shove, right?
The great value.
And so, you know, this is me not knowing enough about League to state this definitively, but I do wonder if part of the reason we're not seeing these as much is because it's a lot harder to buy that. Like, look, the last thing you want to do is walk down to bot lane on a non-mobile champ, do nothing while you're there, and then have lost a wave. Like that, you know, coach doesn't love that either. So, you know, I get it. Like if you are on one of these champions, the reason that Niski did as much shoving as he did is because you kind of have to make that window. And if that's not his style, then I'd say, you know, like, okay, let's go back to the other one.
Night Beast X1 says 100T is falling behind and the way they draft is bad. When they have a team fight that goes bad, they should run, not die and give gold back. If we are going to play Senna, they should play Scion or another champ because TK is not good this meta. So there's a little bit of a few things potpourri in this take. We talked about draft. The whole when they have a team fight that goes bad, they should run, not die, and give gold back. I don't think that's been said very often because it's very self-evident. It still seems that there are times when that's a very appropriate point to be making about this team. It seems like there's a point or two almost every weekend where we overstay or we over-aggress, and we've thrown out the line right. Better to be trying to make a play than to just roll over and die like past iterations of the team have done. So I'm with that, but it's actually kind of like a sneaky good reminder in there in that potpourri take. We have just gotten mopped up at times where it's like, maybe we shouldn't have really done that.
Right. Yeah.
And getting caught out too. We're getting caught out more. We're getting caught out more often than we used to. So
I feel we didn't make a specific note to talk about this, but it's almost becoming, I don't even want to say this, Cole. Is it becoming easy for people to gank someday? Like, there have been a couple of games where it's not even a couple. There have been a lot of games where, I mean, he's playing weak side, but I just feel like the junglers are able to path up there pretty reliably and stop in. And maybe it's like the champs he's playing. I remember multiple Renekton games where he's not able to line up the dash to reset it perfectly, and that's a guaranteed kill. It's just like all of those amazing Sunday plays that I remember. If you think back, there's often a common thing there, which is that he's under his turret, right?
Yeah.
And the turret is doing a lot of the work to turn a dive into a double kill. It feels like he's getting caught out past the river a lot.
Which is a point we've been making now for, I know we'd made it on last pod, maybe even the pod before that. Yeah.
And I know that it's not that somebody's a bad player but I just feel like that's kind of how it goes, right? If you get caught past the river and you have no reinforcements and there's no realistic chance that anybody else, like maybe they just know Closer's not going to be there to jump into that fight if he needs it, and so it's basically free. I don't know, man.
Yeah, maybe we've over-focused bot lane because earlier on in the season, it was, man, are they going to play through their top or through their bot? And it's pretty obvious now that we're playing through our bot. So, okay, Juicy says we have wins over Dignitas twice, EG and Team Liquid. I'm more concerned about how we are incredibly inconsistent with early and mid game, which causes us to almost lose to, and I got to edit him, dog duty teams, and has cost us hard in both C9 games. So inconsistency in the early and mid game. I myself would argue that I don't think we've been too inconsistent in the early game, to be honest. Mid game, I'm right there with you. I think it's been C9 for sure, and then maybe TSM that have kind of punched us in the mouth early game a lot, where we've fallen behind. Most of the time, it seems to be that baffling, like, we're still in it even when things don't really go our way in the early game, and it's usually because of map and neutrals. Even I think this past game against C9, we were hanging with them gold-wise in the beginning for a while. Even though, I think generally against C9, we've gotten exploited a bit. But yeah, it's often that we seem to have the lead in Dragons. It's often that we get more Heralds than the other team. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I wouldn't really make that same conclusion about the early game. I think we're fairly consistent there. But mid game, I feel like you never know what you're going to get.
And I think a lot of that has to do with having Closer on Olaf. He plays Olaf a lot. And that champion is designed to secure early objectives. Like, he is the best champion in the meta at making sure that your team gets those objectives, because he can solo everything. And I'm sure there's more to that, but that I think has a large bit to do with why we reliably get stuff early in these games, even if otherwise things aren't usually going our way. But there's a trade-off to that, right? Which is, in a lot of games, he becomes much less influential toward the mid and late game. I think It's more of the exception where if our team isn't winning, he's able to turn things around. Like the Dignitas game does come to mind, but that's just kind of Olaf, right? Like not a great play from behind champ, really good at positioning your team early on to have sole point, at 20 minutes. Yeah. Like, so, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that.
Okay, one more.
I was gonna.
Oh, you want to say one more thing about it?
It's not related to that, so go ahead.
Carl Ski01 says, what do you think of Damonte trying some of the mid-marksman champs like Tristana or Lucian, or getting him on some off-meta picks like Akali, Kiana, or Nocturne? I felt good about him on control mages at the start of the year. Feel like he has fallen off these past 2 weeks. I mean, we already kind of talked about the control mage thing where I don't think it's quite as bad as, or at least like that general control mages thing is maybe a little overstated with him. I'd be interested in seeing that. Yes. Tristana or Lucian, yes. His Kiana looked great last year. Akali, no one's playing Akali, right? Like I don't remember seeing Akali. I've seen Nocturne play jungle this season, but I don't think in mid. I don't know. It's like I'm mildly interested in that, but I'm mostly interested in him playing things that we know can fit into how we can win, rather than rolling the dice so much, because we're getting to the point now where we want to roll the dice less than before, I guess. So yeah.
I mean, of those champions, right? Like, I'm sort of surprised that we haven't seen him on Nocturne. It just feels like it plays perfectly into what we like to do, which is have him essentially teleport to a lane and give us a huge advantage. Like that's a great one. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm glad we talked about this earlier, but it kind of just feels like it fits into the theme here of not trying stuff that feels overly crazy, sticking more or less to what is established and what we know. So yeah, would I like to see that? Absolutely. I'd love to see that. I mean, here's the other thing. I feel like a lot of these are off meta, which, Karlsky says when he writes his off meta.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, right? Yeah.
But there's off meta and then there's like out of meta, right? It's like there are champions who are just not strong enough objectively to be viable in pro play. Like their stats aren't high enough, right? They don't scale hard enough. But here's the thing that I'll say. An off meta pick can become really strong when other champions are meta, and it just takes you, like Janna, right? Not seeing a lot of Janna, but it worked really well against our Rel. Another one that I saw this weekend I thought was amazing was Palafox on Sylas. He picked that up, and I think he picked it up in large part because they locked in Skarner. So you had Sylas with the Skarner ult, which is basically the only thing that Skarner can do. He's just a better version of Skarner than Skarner is. So things like that, like that could we see? If the only thing that we as a team want Damonte to do is roam, and we don't rely on him to do things like that, like pick a champion that basically negates the game plan of the enemy team, that's a limitation for us that I think that's as concerning as us saying like he's not really shining on control mages. Like it's another dimension to your team if you can have these kinds of picks come out, because it's worked really well to punish people. I mean, that was FlyQuest upsetting TSM in a very major way, and Palafox finished 5-1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. Like that's a great showing from him.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what they do. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about the upcoming weekend predictions, and then we're gonna talk about Dicey for a bit to end the podcast. Now,
what lane does he play, Cole?
Dicey is jungler. Let me just say. Well, let's get through predictions, then I'll say what I want to say. Before we hit Dicey, but Jordan, this Friday we are taking on the Evil Geniuses, who are tied for 4th, 1 game behind us at 7-5. Do you think 100 Thieves gets the win? Let me remind the people at home following along that one of the two of us got the predictions right. One of us didn't. The one who did was me.
That's correct. All right.
So Jordan, now that you know you have to redeem yourself after showing little faith, after we flipped roles, normally people would expect me to predict the 1-2 and you the 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
What say you about EG?
This is actually, it takes all the pressure off me because usually I feel like I have to be very optimistic. It was sort of freeing to be pessimistic. I'm not going to lie to you. So yeah, I'm going to say we beat EG. I mean, I still think we are a good team, and I think that we look stronger than EG overall. I think that's a dub for us. I think bot lane is still strong. All of this is contingent on us finding our best look again. But I think that if we find that we're good, I think we'll find it.
I don't know if I just feel like disagreeing with you or not, because before we started the podcast, I really wanted to predict a win against EG. Now,
but then as you went through the show, you've changed your mind.
Now I'm kind of feeling like predicting a loss against EG. Let's see. Am I overreacting? I am going to.
It's because of impact. Cool.
We're going to lose. I think we're going to lose against EG.
Why? Why would you say that?
Because I don't think that we're going to see much difference in our both our drafts and our approach to the game. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of that. Not to mention, I think a lot of prep is going to go into the TSM matchup more so than EG. So I think I'm going to predict a loss there. I don't think it's going to be a stomp. I think it's going to be close.
Okay.
Oh, changed. Ooh, the energy in here is weird. Okay. TSM is the Saturday game. Jordan.
Yeah. Do you want me to pick it? Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
No, I can go. I think we lose to TSM. I think that it feels like their top lane is peaking as our top lane is not peaking.
I was gonna ask if you are beginning to see the Huni thing.
It's hard for me to ever say that I think Huni is going to be a difference maker in a game, but he has been. They found a way for him to work well in that team, and believe it or not, Cole, it's not by him trying to 1v9 every game. I don't know.
No, it's not. It's like Sword Art is roaming up there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that is big for them, and it's something that we just haven't quite figured out yet, I think. So it's going to be a lot harder for us to, well, I don't think we'll have someday as the fallback save us option. Yeah, I think they get us.
Not to mention they're coming off of a loss, and good teams rebound well after losses, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think we also lose TSM. I think we lose Friday, we lose Saturday. Largely for the reason you said, because I think in bot lane we're going to smash and then it just might not matter. So, all right. So I'm predicting 0-2 so far. You are 1-1. Then we get to Golden Guardians. That old nemesis, Jordan. Golden Guardians.
The rivalry game, Cole.
Me first or you first? What do you want?
I'll take this one. We
okay.
win. And we win in large part because I think if you lose twice to them in one split, shame on you. We really are better across the board. And I think that the only way we lose this game is if we draft ourselves into a corner. I just can't. If we do that, it's going to be very bad.
I think that FBI, you remember how we were talking about like how much he seemed to want blood at the beginning of the split? I think this is frustration game for him. I think we're going to lose the first two games, and FBI is like, I am going to kill everyone. And FBI, like, he has like a 9-10 kill game.
Okay.
And we win.
I can see that.
So, yes, I'm predicting 1-2 this weekend. Jordan's on a 2-1. We shall see who is the prophet and who is the heathen. Okay, so that'll do it for the LCS portion of what we're doing. It's not usual for us to talk about multiple esports in one podcast. We're going to talk about Dicey for the Valorant team for two reasons. One is that piece of news happened and there's not really much else to talk about, so we're not doing Fast Speak last week. But also, two, just to be honest with you guys, schedules are getting tougher for the two of us, so we're not able to as consistently cover, say, Valorant or Call of Duty separately from what we're doing here. So there may be, we're not sure yet, but there may be changes going forward to how we do this. But for now, since the Dicey thing was kind of a big thing, we wanted to bring that up. So you guys are probably aware that Dicey was kind of unexpectedly traded, or actually not even traded. He was just replaced. Mm-hmm. Was that 2 days ago? Right?
Twitter time is a year and a half.
Yeah. After today's Twitter, it's like everything feels like months ago. We signed Ethan from CSGO. He was with EG, and Ethan is going to be taking over Dicey's spot on the team. I think there was a big reaction at first because, first of all, the surprise. I don't think most people were expecting this, even though Dicey had kind of ups and downs. I don't think anybody was able to expect that. Also, because we won the last major Valorant event.
Right.
So this is a roster who won an NA championship that is now undergoing a change. And yes, Dicey did not play super well during that specific event. And then three, I think there's a number of people who are like me and that just really like Dicey personally.
Right.
I like his personality. I liked him in the vlogs. I liked him in the show. He was just like a fun guy, a lot of personality, young. So I liked him.
Had some great pop-off performances.
Great pop-off performances. Yeah. It was pretty fun to watch this guy. So I think those factors combined made this kind of come as a shock to a lot of people. Hopefully with some time, people have started to process this a little bit more. I have some thoughts on it. Jordan, do you want to share one or two things first, or do you want me to just take the ball and run?
Go with it. I'll let you drink your water.
So I want the main thing I want to address is that there was a lot of debate that I saw, in that it was like people blaming it on Dicey's recent performance, like ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And when I thought about it, I didn't come to exactly the same conclusion. And my conclusion actually sounds really dumb. Like it sounds so obvious that it's not really a conclusion or an insight.
Right.
But the only way to really state that is to say that my conclusion was that they think Ethan is going to be a better player than Dicey. I know that doesn't sound intelligent or insightful at all, but let me back up. First of all, this is a team that's not afraid of making a move. Okay. We know the way that Jacob is running this program. He is not afraid to make a change if he feels that we have a chance to be better at something. We took a risk signing the High Grounds roster plus Hiko. It didn't work out, and they pretty quickly made a change, and that significant change led to winning First Strike. So they're not afraid to do that.
It's worth it.
Two, I saw a lot of people focusing on Dicey's like recent performance. Okay. The thing is, he did not have a great First Strike tournament. But then it's like the team didn't do so well, and somehow a lot of people forgot that Nitro was out on paternity leave for a while. So not only did it's like, oh, okay, we didn't look too good while he was out, but we also didn't look too good when he came back. I mean, we looked better than we did while he was out, but it's still like a player who has not been practicing with the team as much, has been gone, had his mind on other more important things. And kudos to him. Like, I'm fully supportive of that.
Yeah.
But it's and 100T is intelligent, right? They're not going to judge a player based on his performance at a time when the rest of the equation has changed so dramatically. You know what I mean? Like, it would be foolish to do that. So no, I don't think they did that. And then the other thing is, Dicey's most recent form was better. He was playing at a better level. He looked better in the last qualifier than he has in a few events. So all of these factors just lead me to believe this is nothing more than that simple belief that, hey, we have a chance at a young, very good CSGO player. CSGO players having transitioned pretty successfully into Valorant, as our own team would evidence. And we might not get another chance at a player like that. And even when Dicey's playing well, it might be an improvement. Plus, it potentially frees Nitro up to op. So I think this is just nothing more than a, hey, I know it's crazy to do this to a championship team, but I think we have a chance to be better by making this move. And I don't think it goes much deeper than that. So,
do you think that if we had already qualified for Second Strike, what's the name of that?
Second Strike, just Masters or something, right?
Masters. If we already qualified, do we still make this change?
Yes, because I don't think it has to do with that. I don't think it has to do like, where are we right now? I think it's like, can we be better with Ethan? EXC Cloud's pointing out, Hiko said they explored Tenzi, which like indicates they were looking for a replacement before Ethan. Yes. So I think someone sent me a clip, or someone at least like showed me something that Hiko had said about that. That's actually, in my opinion, another reason why this is just purely a bet on skill level, because Tenzi's like, he's obviously got like a fan base built in. I saw some people being like, yo, 100T just wants to find people with fans, and Dicey wasn't translating to numbers and stuff like that. It's like, then we would have signed Tenzi. Yeah. Ethan is probably cheaper, and he's not, you know, while he's been excellent, which if you didn't know, guys, Ethan's like CSGO record is pretty sterling. If you look at his Wikipedia page, he's basically won like 6 out of 7 of his last events and got like 3rd or 4th in the one that they didn't win. So I don't think it's anything more than like, hey, this guy could be one of the best Valorant players that we have, period. Let's grab him.
Right.
And rotate him in for who is kind of looking like our weakest link on the team, which sucks for me because I love Dicey, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. It's interesting. There are kind of philosophy questions here on how do you prioritize talent? You know, I think you've got, and we kind of touched on this back at the start. When you have a new game, there's players coming from all over the place, right? And like, we're not at the point yet where for a lot of players, Valorant is their first game, right? So, I mean, you're kind of making a bet on a couple of things. One of them is that top level CS pros are still more mechanically skilled, strategically skilled, you know, whatever the core criteria are, than a lot of your Valorant professionals. Which, I mean, I think I get that. I think I agree with that for whatever reason. I don't know if that's right. Maybe that's worth just a conversation, but I mean, that's
I think I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's fair, you know, like, but I just feel like for whatever reason, there is this idea, and maybe it's because our team, which is, 3 CSGO pros who were incredibly successful in CSGO, won, right? Like, if you need evidence to make that assertion, I think that's evidence that you could look at to say, yeah, CSGO seems to translate well. 3/5 of our roster was that. So is having 4/5 of your roster be really top flight CSGO talent a bad thing? I would say no. And especially when you talk about, like, Nitro is older than Ethan, right? I think he's 24, maybe. Like,
I thought Nitro was even older than that.
Yeah, he'd had a successful career, right? Ethan is 21, I think, and he has also had a successful career. So it's kind of crazy.
He's 25, according to chat.
25. Yeah, he got older while I wasn't looking. So yeah, like that is something that I think you got to take into account. And having 4 guys who are from the same background, you also have to imagine that they're going to think about the game in a very similar way and complement each other well. So I think that helps. The guy seems to be an absolute beast, right? And I think it's one of the things I thought about too is we have not made a statement about, when we put this roster, our winning roster together, it was 3 CSGO vets and 2 young guys, 2 young guns, right? Who we felt had a lot of upside. And we made those bets on the young guys, not because we want to develop NA talent or to, like there's no motive here other than winning trophies.
Yeah.
And so I think that as you go, if you recognize that one of the players available to you has a better upside and you don't feel like it's going to blow up the team chemistry, that is the move to make, right? Like there is no identity here that we have or are trying to maintain other than winning trophies. So I think you make the moves that give you the best shot at that. And clearly Ethan's somebody who's a proven competitor, got a strong track record, a very successful career already. Yeah, I can see it. I can totally see it. And I echo everything you said. We'll miss Dicey. He was a fun guy. Here's the other thing I thought about Dicey. And I saw a lot of people from the community saying, like, bright future ahead of you. You're going to have a very successful career in this if you want one. Totally. Right. He's got the one championship that the community has available. He's got it on his resume. He's a super young player who will continue to grow. So, like he's going to land somewhere. It's not a question of that.
Right.
But yeah, this just seems like it was a move they could not pass up. And I think your point on you don't know how many of these players are going to be available is a really good one, because we kind of had the first wave, the first exodus of CSGO players. And I think it's going to slow down, or at least unless there are other massive changes in the CSGO scene, of course. But it's not like you can fill out an entire roster of CSGO pros because there's a whole bunch of people looking for different games to play, right? Like these are going to be fewer and further between. I think you really have to jump when you get these chances.
Yeah, I don't think we actually we drilled this point home, so that I guess this is the last point we'll make about it. One of the obvious concerns when you change a championship winning team is like, okay, there's the skill cap that somebody has and that a team has, like their potential when they're firing on all cylinders, but there's also team fit, right? It's kind of the same argument we've had with Damonte on this squad, where it's like, okay,
yeah,
he fits though, And so I think part of the argument being surprised by this is taking the risk on team chemistry when you have a winning formula. I think that is one thing that is a valid complaint, but it also shows you that 100T is looking at the long-term picture here. And so changing the team makeup at a time when it's like crunch time for us to qualify here, that's a calculated risk. They are taking this risk that they might throw in the near future in hopes of being better later on when it matters more. And so that's a longer view, which is something that you want to see most times with your orgs. But also just remembering the fact that they will bear responsibility for blowing it up if it doesn't work out. This is not a one-to-one comparison, but when we added Bang to our league team, it felt like it's like, oh man, we're adding this crack player to a team that really needs it. Like they're gonna be better, and then we got way worse, and that was for a variety of reasons, and it wasn't just purely because of team chemistry. We had probably overachieved in the past and then made a couple of changes and an unfavorable meta, etc. There's other considerations, but as an illustration, they will bear the responsibility for making this change, or they will claim the reward of making that change. So it's a calculated risk, and if you want to win, you have to make some of those calculated risks. Right. And I'd rather go for that high potential and maybe see what we can do when it comes time to actually have the Valorant Worlds events. You got to beat Vision Strikers somehow, right?
Yeah. Last couple of points I'll make is you already mentioned, right, that we did this once in Valorant already. We made changes to our roster, and it paid off once. And we actually did this in COD, right? Like adding Priesta, adding Crowder. You know, we were on the brink of not qualifying, right? Like that's the order that happened in.
Yeah.
And then we were able to. It was after FaZe had not made it in, right? I might be getting the order.
Yeah, the details are. Yeah, it's not super important, but
like those changes made us into a championship team, right? And so, hey, there's a track record there. I think that these guys know what they're doing when it comes to assessing talent more often than not, and it's usually paid off. So I feel like this is. And here's the other thing: let's keep in mind we have had a lot of interest in our Valorant squad. I remember Hiko saying that they had tons of people calling to see about signing on after they had announced some of the changes to the roster. So, you know, they still have a lot of pull in the community. Obviously, they've got the trophy, and no one else does. So, you know, I've got to imagine that this is us getting a what feels like a sure thing for the future. And I'm excited to see him play. I can't wait to watch.
Yep. Though again, we will sincerely miss Dicey. Really liked him.
Yeah.
So
of course.
And we wish him well. All right, that's gonna do it for 100 Talk tonight. We've got Rec League later this week, if all goes well, and then we've got lots of esports to watch. So there's been so much to keep track of recently. It's kind of been crazy, but I think it's a fun time to be a fan because we are pretty good in the sports we're competing in. So hope that momentum continues, and we'll be watching and ready to 100 Talk about it. So
Anonymous Secret Admirer, good dropping 5 more. Thank you.
What is going on? Thank you.
We are going to raid as well, so nobody go anywhere.
Yeah, maybe Anonymous will reveal themselves at some point in the future so that we can properly thank them for doing this. But yeah, so that'll do it for us tonight. Stick around for the raid. Hang out in our Discord. I'm putting the link in the chat. We love you, and we miss you already.
Take care.